there, on this video we are going to do 4 problems that require solving inequalities in order to figure out the answers. So you have a handout of these same problems, so I would cut along the dotted lines and tape them into your notebook as you solve each problem. So the first problem is a farmer harvests 18 bushels of green peppers, 27 bushels of red peppers, and 13 bushels of yellow peppers every day. The farmer wants to know how many days, D, it will take to harvest more than 250 bushels of peppers. Write an inequality that models this situation and then solve it to determine how many days it will take to harvest more than 250 bushels. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look and highlight some important things. It says that he has 18 bushels of green peppers, 27 bushels of red peppers, and 13 bushels of yellow peppers every day. And we want to know how many days it will take. So since the question is how many days, that tells us a variable has to be D for days. So we have 18 bushels of green peppers every day, so that's 18 times the number of days. We have 27 bushels of red peppers every day, so that's 27D. And we have 13 bushels of yellow peppers every day. So that is an expression for how many bushels each day. And we want to know when that total is going to be more than 250 bushels. So that means greater than 250. So that is the inequality that we set up. Now we have to work on solving it. So we need to combine all the like terms, and 18D, 27D, and 13D are like terms. They all have the D in common. So that totals 58D, and that's greater than 250. And so now we use our properties of inequality. To get the D by itself, we divide both sides by 58. And when we do this, we get a non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and write it as a mixed number. 58 goes into 250 4 times. And then 18 are left over, so it's 18 over 58, but we simplify that to be 9/29. So D has to be greater than 4 and 9/29. Well, my D stands for days. So the number of days it will take to get more than 250 has to be more than 4 and 9/29 days. So let's write that as a sentence that makes sense. So in sentence form, I would say that it will take more than 4 and 4/29 days. And most of us wouldn't talk like that, so let's put it into more realistic terms. That means that on the 5th day, the farmer will have harvested more than 250 bushels. All right, let's move on to number 2. All right, number 2 says the length of a rectangle is 2 feet longer than its width. For what widths is the perimeter of the rectangle at least 180 feet? So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a picture of a rectangle and fill in the information that I'm given. So I'm told that the length is 2 feet longer than a width. I don't know what the width is, so I'll put a W there for width. And I know that the length is 2 feet longer, so that means it's W plus 2. And keep in mind that we have this formula that we have learned in previous courses, and we reviewed it recently. The perimeter is 2 times the length plus the width added together. So if we continue that, or if we use that formula, we want the perimeter to be at least 180 feet. So we're going to plug in 180 for the perimeter, but I'm not going to have equals to. I want it to be at least 180. So that means that we have less than or equal to here, because what I want is something bigger than or equal to 180. And then if we continue on with what we know, 2 times the length, well, the length is w plus 2, plus the width. So let's work now on simplifying what we have here. So we have 180 is less than or equal to 2 times, and then I'm going to combine the w plus the w, and that's 2w. And I have that plus 2 there that just stays as is. Now I'm going to, here I have some choices. I'm going to distribute the 2 inside the parentheses. So we have 180 is less than or equal to 4w plus 4. And to isolate the variable, I'm going to subtract 4 first. And I get 176 is less than or equal to 4w. Now I need to divide both sides by 4. And that results in 44 is less than or equal to w. So what does that tell us about the question? The question is, for what widths is the perimeter of the rectangle at least 180 feet? And we got 44 is less than or equal to w. W is representing the width. So let's put this in a sentence. And the sentence I would write is the width must be at least 44 feet. It can be greater than or equal to 44. You could write it that way as well. Alright, let's move on to the next problem. And we are on number 3 now. It says the initial cost to rent a bike is $9. Each hour the bike is rented costs $2.25. Connor is going to rent a bike and can spend at most $27. Write and solve an inequality to find how long he can rent the bike. So we know that he has to pay $9 up front, and then each hour costs $2.25, and the question says to find how long. So we're looking for the number of hours, which means hours is our variable. So $2.25 is added to the $9, but it's $2.25 for each hour, so I multiply that by h. And he can spend at most $27, so it has to be less than or equal to 27. He has to spend less than or equal to $27. Now it's time to solve this inequality. So I'm going to subtract 9 from each side first. That 225h drops down. And we have less than or equal to. And then 27 minus 9 is 18. Our next step is to divide both sides by 225 in order to isolate the h. So h is less than or equal to 8. So what does that mean in terms of Connor renting the bike? Let's write a sentence for that. In sentence form, I would say that Connor can rent the bike for up to 8 hours. You could put it in your own words. You could say that he can rent the bike for at a maximum of 8 hours, or less than or equal to 8 hours. Any words that would indicate the same result. All right, let's move on to the last problem for the notes. And that is number 4 here. Adesso's Adventures charges $35 for a yearly membership, which allows you to purchase games for $12 each. Jenny's Jam Place charges $5 for a yearly membership and charges $20 for each game. Write and solve an inequality to determine when it is more economical to get a membership at Adesso's Adventures. So, first of all, you need to know that more economical means it's less expensive. So, let's go ahead and write an inequality where we want Adesso's Adventures to be less than Jenny's Jam Place. Adesso's Adventures charges $35. So we start with 35 for the yearly membership, and you can purchase games for $12 each. So you would have to add on to that $12 for every game you purchase. We want that result to be less than Jenny's Jam Place. So Jenny's Jam Place charges $5 for the yearly charge and $20 for each game. So we would have to add $20 for every game that you buy. So let's go ahead and solve this inequality. Remember that when we have variables on both sides, we need to get the variable on one side first. So I'm going to choose to subtract 12g from both sides. At this point in my equation or inequality, I have 4 choices. I can get rid of the 12g like I am. I could also subtract 20g. Another option is to subtract 5, and a fourth option is to subtract 35. So any of those choices will result in a mathematically sound solution. Here we're going to drop down the 35. 12g minus 12g is 0, so that cancels. I have a less than symbol here. The 5 drops down, and 20 minus 12g is 8g. At this point, I'm going to get rid of the 5, so subtract 5 from each side. And here I get 30 is less than 8g. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So we get 3.75 is less than g. Now think about what the g stood for. G stood for how many games you purchase in the year. So what does that tell you about when Adesso's Adventures will be the more economical than Jenny's Jam Place? Let's put that in a sentence. Alright, so since we're purchasing games, we would not be able to purchase part of a game. So I rounded 3.75 to 4. So if you buy 4 or more games, it's more economical to get a membership at Adesso's Adventures. Since G here, this G has to be greater than 3.75. So this G here has to be greater than 3.75. And that sums up the 4 problems you had for notes.